Hello and welcome to episode 34 of React Native Radio. Today on our show we have Shoutem, and we have three of the guys from the Shoutem team. Before we kind of go into what Shoutem is, can you kind of introduce yourselves, and then if you want to go into kind of what Shoutem does and what you guys are going to be doing with React Native in the future, that would be great.
Sure. So this is Viktor. I'm a Shoutem CEO.
I'm a Davor, and I work as a product manager here at Shoutem.
And I'm Tomislav, and I'm technical product manager here at Shoutem.
Okay, great. Well, thank you guys for joining us. So can you kind of go over what Shoutem is doing right now with React Native?
Sure. So maybe I can give you a little bit of background where we are from, and, how we are set up. So we are spun off of a bigger mobile app development agency that was started 8 years ago in Croatia. 5 years ago, we opened up an office in New York and started Shoutem, which is a mobile app development platform. Early this year, in January, we decided to move our technology to React Native and use React Native for our client base software. And basically, that was 6 months ago. We are pretty far with the development, and we want to move all of our clients. And we have about 5,000 apps in the App Store published so far. We want to move all those guys to new React Native platform by the end of the year. So that's the idea. We discovered React. Yeah. We discovered React Native maybe in November last year. Started playing around. We were playing around with that for 2 months, doing some tests. We really liked the technology, and now after 6 months, maybe Davor or Tomislav can tell you, how we like it out. After half a year of development.
Yeah, we like it very much because as I mentioned. Hybrid technologies had some issues, performance, and our clients weren't always satisfied with hybrid peak. But React Native is native, as the title says, and it has given us a very great opportunity to use the same business technology, to use JavaScript, which is fairly simple and known to even web developers, and we can even extend our public and target clients like that.
So can you kind of give us a quick overview of what Shoutem offers as a product for people that are going to be using Shoutem or have used it in the past and will be using it in the future?
Yeah. So the easiest way to describe Shoutem is WordPress for native apps. So basically, it's an app creator, a CMS to build native apps. We wanted to make app creation really easy, and we actually have 70-year-old ladies building apps for their garden clubs on Shoutem. So that's kind of the extreme. But then we have people that couldn't afford or don't have any development skills building apps, and also we have big enterprise companies that are building apps on Shoutem just to reduce the costs of app development and maintenance. So that's the product, but basically CMS for native apps. And what Tomislav said, our technology was based on HTML5 JavaScript. We wanted to do a cross-platform hybrid technology, but we could never achieve performances. We were always lagging behind native apps, and React Native is giving us an opportunity to still be cross-platform, be web developer friendly, so they can build apps existing web developers, and then actually get a really same performances in any native app.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess so if I was a designer, or I was someone that wasn't really extremely technical and I wanted to kind of build my own app, you guys kind of offer a nice interface to kind of build the apps in the UI or something like that, pretty much.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, definitely. We have very intuitive builder that you can use and build your app. But as we always also mentioned the problem was that our customers wanted more and more freedom to build more powerful apps. And we couldn't focus on the platform itself, but we needed to focus on these custom features. So instead, we wanted to really focus on our platform and to build something that many people are already using. And the obvious choice when we started with this was really React Native. And now we have really the chance to make this architecture like WordPress is doing on top of React Native, because you really use, there is no Shoutem overhead. And you're using React Native, and you can still use our builder and create a very intuitive, use very intuitive builder and create apps with no developing skills required.
Wow, yeah, I think that's really great that you guys are you guys have looked at all the available technologies and you've decided that React Native is what you guys want to use. I think that says a lot about the technology. And I'm kind of curious, as far as what if I wanted to build an app with Shoutem, but I wanted to do some customization? Is it can you kind of get into the code and do your own customization, or is it all packaged and you don't really get access to the code?
The thing with Shoutem, we don't want to tie you just when you're using Shoutem. We don't want to tie our hands and say, okay, you're using Shoutem and you need to use Shoutem. Almost everything what we'll do will be open source, and many things already are open source. So basically, you see completely code that you're using, and there is no Shoutem overhead. You're using React Native, and we just made this code also in React Native, which we call application. An application is a wrapper around the product that we are promoting, and that's Shoutem extensions. Shoutem extensions are very similar like WordPress plugins that you just include to your application, and application as a wrapper navigates through the extensions. So if you want to make any custom functionality, you can do so using React Native.
So, like Tomislav is saying, it's very similar to the WordPress. In WordPress, you have plugins. In Shoutem, you have the extensions. Every extensions encapsulates some kind of functionality you need in the application, like user authentication, for example, or fetching the news from the server and showing that news to the user with the option to touch the news and go to the details. And if you don't like the extension that you get out of the box, you can check out the code and change it. And in the same way, if you don't find the extensions that fits your need, you can, again, create extension from scratch. And for doing that, we give you the tools to do that. For example, we have a command line tool that you can download and then build your own extensions. We provide you with this UI toolkit, the set of the components that when you are using them, you can easily style your application, some other libraries for communicating with the server for fetching the data, and so. So the question that you actually asked was the question that our customers ask us a lot, because they went to the point where, okay, we want to do some of the customizations, but we are not able. And that was like the initial point when we started to think about what could be our next step in order to make possible for customers to customize their apps. And that's why we started to searching for technologies that could give us a possibility to do that. And one of the technologies was obviously React Native.
So this is more of a technical question, but I'm kind of curious. When you guys started building this new platform for React Native, did you have to basically kind of start everything over? And also, how difficult was it to build something like this sophisticated? Because it just seems like such a pretty tough project to kind of actually build another abstraction on top of all these abstractions and actually have it work. And but I could see how React Native would kind of make that a lot easier than doing it natively, or even honestly with hybrid. But I'm kind of curious what technical challenges you guys have run into and how you've overcome those.
Yeah, the biggest technical challenge, the biggest work we had to do was on a client, because now we are obviously not using the hybrid application. Obviously, we are not doing the web application wrapped in some kind of a native wrapper, but entirely our client we had to rewrite to work on React Native. And the things that we were able to keep were the parts of our existing builder UI, where basically you are configuring the configuration of your application, CMS backend part, the push notifications backend part, then all the analytics and part of the application publishing process, because the Shoutem also, besides enabling you to build the application, also helps you in publishing the application to the App Store. So it was quite a large architectural change when we talk about building a new client. but like 50% of the existing platform we were able to preserve and use in this environment.
Yeah, we had a lot of discussions of how we want actually our product to look like. We didn't want to include much of overhead. We just wanted you to use React Native. And if you know React Native, you know Shoutem also. We wanted to be very intuitive and our developers to feel like they are at home. Even web developers to immediately be able to write very powerful mobile apps. And I think that was also one of the big challenges that we had, because it gets so frustrating after a while to work on specification and how it should be done. But we really wanted to make this good, and we really wanted to make this as much as user-friendly as possible to developers that will be using it.
So as far as your engineering team is structured, like how many people do you guys have working on this, and like what kind of background do they have?
We have on this project 15 people working. We have like 3 teams. And there we have like the server team that are working on a Node.js. Node.js is our backend technology. Then we have a couple of people working on a client team. They are like cross-platform teams. They are doing things in the React Native, but they have the native experience both for iOS and for Android. And we have a web team that's basically doing that web CMS builder part of the product in React.js. So the technologies that we are using, the technology stacks is like Node.js, .NET, that's the legacy part of the platform, and React.js and React Native.
Yeah, as Davor mentioned, we had this .NET backend, but one of the things that made us choose React Native is that whole our team uses JavaScript now. And we are using a lot of business technologies we are using on each platform, and our whole team communicates better now since they are on the very similar, if not the same technology.
That is awesome. That is really interesting to hear. I mean, I hear more and more of that lately, like that people are kind of, big companies, small companies, just so many companies are thinking that same way. The paradigm of being able to just stay on one language and kind of be able to do the server and the client stuff all with JavaScript.
Yeah, I can tell you, like, from, one more thing, what might be interesting to your listeners is, as I said, the Shoutem is a spun-off of a bigger agency, which is 90 people doing mobile apps. So it's called Five. And this is how we started. So we are doing mobile apps for 10 years. And one of the biggest problems right now is that, you don't have many native developers, but you have a lot of companies that have existing web developers, which are great developers and they know web technologies, and they just don't want to learn native technology for iOS or for Android. And React Native enables them to build high quality apps with the languages that they already know, like JavaScript and React.
Yeah, universal JavaScript really pays off.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. How much actual native code are you guys having to kind of write to make all this stuff work? Is it like just off the top of your head? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, we had a lot of native code from our previous system that we could use and that we are using as help SDKs and libraries that we are including. But there is not so many things that we needed to do. Like, for instance, we have something for beacons and stuff like that. But mostly we are concerned with JavaScript part.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There was one thing that you asked in the beginning, if you don't mind, regarding our research and how we decided for React Native. And I can tell you, maybe it would be interesting to hear, what other technologies we were looking at.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we were using our own HTML5 JavaScript framework that we built in-house, and we started working on that 4 years ago. Because at that time we were looking at jQuery and stuff like that, which didn't really perform well on mobile. But now, when before we switched to React Native, we were looking at React.js, but for and doing again a hybrid app, a web app using React.js. That was one option. The second one was Angular, and then we were looking at native script, which is very similar concept to React Native, but it's just not nothing nowhere near as popular as React Native. I don't know. Did they forget anything, Tomislav or Davor? I think those were the kind of short-listed.
Yeah.
Yeah, NativeScript is interesting. Did you guys what do you think about NativeScript? I haven't had a chance to kind of really get into it yet. I keep waiting for Angular to become a little more stable, and I know that like right now it is actually becoming a lot more stable. So I would love to look into that. Yeah, I'd like to know your take on it.
We were really discussing if we should use NativeScript or React Native, but we decided with React Native because I think NativeScript, to learn to use NativeScript, you need to use native API. In order to write application, a native application like Android application or iOS application, it's not a problem to learn Java or to learn Swift, Objective-C. I think that's not a problem. But what is problem is to learn the ecosystem around itself. And that's what NativeScript forces you to do. You need to learn these native APIs in order to write application. But with React Native, there are tons of things that you can use the same universal API to with lists, with buttons, with text. There are so much things that we can use not just for our business logic, but for UI also.
Okay, that makes sense. So the fact that you guys have bet so heavily on React Native, I'm kind of curious on what you guys see as like the future of the app development and the general ecosystem as a whole moving over the next couple of years, like between web and different languages and frameworks. It seems like to me that, like you talked about earlier, everyone is just being priced out of hiring these native engineers because it's just so expensive and they're so hard to come by. That something like React Native or something similar, if they can actually nail it, and I feel like React Native is nailing it, but of course there could always be something else that comes along that can come around and kind of change the entire paradigm of how engineering teams are structured. I'm kind of curious what your take is on React Native and how that fits into that whole idea.
Right. Well, okay. So like 2 years ago, there was a big discussion about like mobile versus apps. And, everybody was we were very excited about responsive websites. And, we were talking to investors and VCs, and they were all kind of claiming that, apps are gone and like, responsive websites will take over. And you've seen Google is really pushing hard to, make, a web browser experience very, similar to a native app. But I think there is one big factor that is kind of, making sure that the apps are here to stay, and that's Apple and the iPhone. And, as long as they want, people to use apps instead of websites, I think we will have apps. I'm not sure if the web technologies will ever be able to match the native performances on the websites on desktop. That happened, but it took many years until we had the technology, that it was able to match the native apps that were written for desktop. That you could have like a web-based app that was similar experience to a native app on desktop, and I think that might happen on mobile, but I don't know how soon. So that's one thing. In terms of React Native, I think the developers will, are really interested. We are talking to a lot of people. Everybody's talking about React Native. People that were doing native apps now, and kind of gave up on hybrid apps, and got back to the native apps, are now again looking at React Native. The problem here that I see is, that React Native is, a technology that is kind of developed by a Facebook team, which might be a competitor to Google and Apple in some sense. So I'm kind of worried, what will happen there if React Native really, gets like a lot of popularity. But again, we had a discussion the other day in the company, like, what if React Native, becomes so popular that it's kind of starts threatening, let's say Objective-C, Swift, or Java for Android. And basically the answer was like, why would Apple or Google care? They just want apps that, work on their platform, in their ecosystem.
Exactly.
They don't really care, is it Swift or JavaScript or, whatever. So that's the kind of how we are thinking.
And that's a good point. And it even seems like lately they've been doing their best to allow an easier cycle of deployment, regardless of what the app is built on, because now with Code Push and all these other services, and even people build their own services that allow you to do the remote updating, they've literally, I think, explicitly come out and say that that's okay to do. So it seems like if they were really against these other technologies, they would be pushing against that.
So I think, in short, I think the apps are here to stay for many years. And I think React Native has a bright future. That is why we are betting on that. Because we could have Davor explained that our backend pretty much stay the same. We switch the technology on our clients on mobile apps, but our backend is that does most of the job in terms of like content management and app configuration stay the same. We could have opted for Swift and Java for Android, and it would work for us. But somehow we kind of liked React Native because we think that it will become very popular.
I have a question. This goes back to more of the actual Shoutem platform and more questions centered around that topic. So I guess you guys allow Android and iOS apps to be kind of shipped through Shoutem. Is that correct?
You think you're talking about the completely native, written in Swift and Java code?
No. So if I use Shoutem, like what platforms do you support right now?
Yeah, we are supporting the iOS and the Android platforms. I know that the paradigm of React Native is like learn once, use everywhere, but we decided to go for a cross-platform approach, like write once and do it everywhere. So that was also one of the reasons why we created our own UI toolkit, because our components work across all platforms, across Android and the iOS. So basically by writing one of your extensions, you can cover both platforms.
What about in the future? Will you guys be thinking about doing any other platforms? I know Windows is there now, and then I think there's been talk about React Native Web, React Native Desktop, and also tvOS, I believe. And I'm just kind of curious what you guys are thinking about there. I know that's such a small market as opposed to like the mainstream, mobile app development. So
it's small now, but I think it can grow. This was also one of the things why we very much liked why we chose React Native. Because as the time passed by, we saw that more and more platforms are available to be targeted through React Native. And also on this React Europe, you could have heard talks about that it's not only React Native, that this React, it's not that you need to use React, but that can be used on any native platform, TVs, and it's very good for us. It says that our investment in React Native really pays off. So also, our builder, we are trying to make our builder that it's not tied only to make mobile applications, but it is tied to making mobile applications themselves, because the concept will be similar, more or less. So I think it won't be hard for us to switch something to making apps for TVs once it becomes our priority or our market.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be really cool to be able to do all that stuff within one platform, especially in the future if it does become, on all these different platforms, React Native, and be able to go one place and do all this stuff. I mean, that would be crazy.
Our mission stays the same. How it's now, our mission on the mobile platforms now is to reduce the reinvention of the wheel, to reduce the common functionalities that you need to do over and over, like user onboarding, push notifications, and many stuff that really gets re-implemented. But I think that our mission can stay the same on other platforms too. We'll make these extensions for you, and you can check them out. You can see the source code. They are also open source. If you don't like anything about it, you can change any code, make it as your extension, push it to another server, and it will just work.
So I have a question about the actual shipping of the app. So if I go on your platform and I build an app, is there a way to get it to the App Store, or do I get the package Xcode or the Android build and then I submit it manually? And then also, what if I wanted to do like an enterprise style app? Like, what are the different use cases between all of those different ideas?
Yeah, how we are trying to make Shoutem is that we are trying to make it as more services, more independent services, which together make great and very powerful mobile builder. Now we have CMS, we have Builder for apps, we have extensions, we have UI toolkit, we have some libraries that help you build extensions with Redux and any actually React Native application. And we are also making the publishing platform for our mobile apps. We already have it for our legacy system, but we are also making it easier and independent to work with new platform as well. So how I said before, that we really don't want to tie your hands only to Shoutem. Once you make application on Shoutem, you can extract it, you can get your APK, you can get your IPA, you can get the build of the application. And it's up to you whether you'll use our application publishing system or not. But I think that most of the developers will want to use the whole pack together as Shoutem, everything that we are providing, because we are reducing the development time very much. And even though you're not tied to use all of them together, I think them together make really good platform for building mobile apps.
Yeah, interesting thing was on a React Europe conference where we were sponsors and we had a booth. We had that poster, a penguin, with one bullet saying that we automate publishing of the apps to the stores. And a lot of the developers, web developers, approached us and asked us, can we only use this service? Because lots of them have problems with that publishing. It's unfamiliar to them, like those certificates, signing, provisioning profiles, submitting the app to the store. It brings a lot of confusion to them. So they were very interested in that product. So we are thinking of maybe releasing that product as a standalone as well, so that you don't have to build anything on a Shoutem, but you can use this service, this product as a standalone.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the big things for web developers coming to the native or just app development in general, even if you're using hybrid, that you have this whole new set of things that you have to kind of understand, and you're working in Xcode, and you may have never done that, or maybe you're working, in some different platform specific IDEs and things like that. You don't really understand coming from web. So yeah, that would just make everything a lot smoother for web developers.
Yeah, exactly. And also the problems that we saw are the problems with the enterprises. We have now the enterprises that have 50 or more same looking applications, template application, for example, large publishing medias that have application for each local newspapers. And when they have to make an update to the app, they have to republish more than 50 apps, and it's 2-3 week long process. And there where this kind of a tool is very, very need to have.
So where is your office located? I know you guys are mainly in Croatia. Is that where your only office is, or do you have more than one office?
We have two offices. We have one in New York, where Viktor is based, and the sales and the marketing team, and the production actually is in Croatia, in Zagreb. Actually, in Croatia, we have also two offices. One here in Zagreb, which is the capital of Croatia, and another in Osijek.
I just got back from New York yesterday. I wish I knew. I would have tried to come see you. I was at the React camp. Did you hear about that conference?
Yeah. I heard about it.
That was a pretty cool conference.
Yeah, I heard that they have these tickets with a flexible price. You pay what you think it's right to pay, $20, $30.
Yeah. It was $20, is their suggested price. You could pay more or less, but it was in the United Nations, which was really cool. And I feel like it was just as good quality as pretty much some of these bigger conferences I've been to. And then you're in the United Nations, so you have a really beautiful room and very comfortable. It's awesome. I suggest everybody to check that out next year. So, and then they have, I think it's part of something called the Open Camps. So it's all these open source technologies. They have a separate conferences over the last 10 days. So they'll have a Python, and they had an Angular or whatever, and then they have React. So it's pretty cool. I guess in building Shoutem and the platform, the previous version and this version, I guess mainly I would like to know more about the React Native. What kind of issues or roadblocks did you guys kind of have coming into building everything?
As our platform is web-based platform, so basically you need to be able to preview the application on a web. One of the problems was how to bring that preview of the native application inside a web browser. And for that, at the moment we are using that service Updates.io. I don't know if you are familiar with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Appetize.io.
Yeah, and one of the big challenges that we have is like bringing that preview to be real life. So once you change something in application configuration, you upload a new extension, you add a new navigational item or something like that, that change instantly shows inside of that preview. And currently, yeah, we are dealing with that because there is a certain amount of time that we have to wait until the code changes package. Then we are using the code push to push that changes to the application. And then we are using the updates to actually do the preview. And that entire process is like 10 seconds long. And we want to bring it below the 1 second so that users are experiencing almost instant changes in their browsers. I don't know, another thing that is like very often updates of React Native. So there are, I believe, like 2 week, 3 weeks release cycles, if I'm not wrong. And some of those release cycles, some of the new releases kind of break things that we already implemented, and then we have to go back and re-implement some of the things. Those are like the 2 major roadblocks that we have at the moment.
Yeah, that seems like a very difficult situation or a difficult problem to be able to solve. So you're basically saying that you want to be able to make it so when the user saves the new app, they can start interacting with it very soon. But instead, because of everything, the infrastructure and how everything works, you basically have to update the bundle through, through code push, and then it has to also be updated through Appetize, and then the customer can or the user can kind of look at the new build.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like 10-second process, and yeah, we want to bring it down below the 1 second.
It's still faster than native development, huh?
Oh, it's much faster than a native development. Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, I would love to hear how you guys come along with that, because that seems like a pretty tough challenge right there.
Yeah, exactly. We're working on it.
So can you kind of walk me through like a typical, if I was wanting to start using your product, and like if I was like a customer and I wanted to just build an app, like can you walk through the process? Like you go to the website, you sign up, and then what do you do from there?
Yeah, our documentation is available already now on Shoutem GitHub bio. And basically, you just download our command line tool, which navigates you through the process of building an app. We have tutorial with getting started, and you just quickly get around the concepts that Shoutem is providing, such as how to make a mobile screen component, how to use our content management system, and how to publish your extension. Once you're done with that, we have other set of tutorials how to use more powerful features on Shoutem, such as user authentication, user management data. And also we have reference on how to use our UI toolkit, which can be used really without Shoutem extensions at all. One more thing that we also solved is the class problem, a CSS class problem in React Native, and we solved it with Shoutem themes, which basically allow you to make customizable components, because once you're writing inline styles for components, they are pretty much encapsulated and you can't change them. But if you use Shoutem themes, you can register the style that you want to use on that component and provide the default style. And on one place, using Shoutem theme, you can customize that components and change the complete look of the application very fast.
If I can add on that. So the typical process when you arrive on our website will be that you first create your account, and then you can choose like from the dozens of templates, like you want to build an app for the restaurants, you want to build an app for the, newspapers or something like that. Then you choose the template of the app. Then you choose like the style, the theme of the applications. Want it to be more modern, more conservative or so on. And then you land in your application, and there you can choose between like 20 or more plugins, extensions. that you can put in your application. Extensions for reading the news, extensions for user authentication, then extensions for, integration with Clary Analytics and so on. And if you don't have the extensions that, for example, you need, for example, you want to build the rating system of some of the list of the restaurants, then you go to that getting started tutorial on a web and learn how to write your own extension in React Native for Shoutem. You download that command line tool and just start following that tutorial and create the extension. Once you are done, you can push your code back to Shoutem and add your extension in the application, configure it, and if you are satisfied with your work, then you can publish the application and we can submit that application immediately to the App Store. So this is how some general process would look like.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty, interesting and easy way to get going, building an app. I looked at your website and I've been playing around with the interface. The design is very nice and very easy to use. So I'm going to be giving it a look. So
we like to think of ourselves that we are sitting in the middle of two group of competitors. One group of competitors are the application builders, which are for non-developers, so for like the business owners that open their account and just want to drag and drop some modules into the application and create the application, something like, Good Barber business apps are. And on the other end, you have application builders for developers like the Accelerator or Coney or some others, where you have to know coding and you code everything in their IDEA tool. We like to think of ourselves that we are somewhere in the middle. You can go to our platform and you can build everything without the development, but if you need to customize that something, then you can check out the code and do the changes that you need.
So I guess my last question would be, so what would you say that like your platform would be a good use case for, and what would your platform not be a good use case for?
Our platform would be a good case for a lot of small to medium web and mobile agencies, only because if you take a look at how agencies work, how their development process looks like, you will notice, they are working on a custom solutions for their clients, but a lot of the things that they are doing is basically boilerplate. They are re-implementing the same things from, user authentication. We mentioned it a couple of times, integration with push notifications, analytics, and they already did that on some other customer project. And if they are working for iOS and the Android, then they have to do that twice, and that's quite expensive. So I'm intentionally mentioning that that's a problem for smaller and medium agencies because they are not having unlimited budgets, like 50K for building mobile application, but more like $50,000 to $100,000 for building mobile application. It's very expensive for them to do everything in a native. That's why in the past they were more prone to go with hybrid apps. So that's why the Shoutem is perfect case for them. And another perfect case would be those enterprises that have a lot of applications, 50 or more applications in a store, which basically are not developing anymore, but maintaining their apps. Because, for example, LinkedIn publishes the new update of their SDK. They have to update all these 50 applications and push all these 50 applications to the store, and that's obviously a time consuming. So they are basically not spending their budgets on innovation, but they're spending most of their budget, like 80% of their budgets, on maintenance. So I would say that for those two, for the web and mobile agencies and for such enterprises, Shoutem is a perfect solution for them.
So you mentioned authentication a couple of times. How difficult was that to kind of get integrated into the platform? It just seems like such a big, complex problem to solve. I would be curious about how you guys went about solving that, and also how a user would kind of integrate user authentication and maybe some type of authorization also if they're interacting with some APIs.
Yeah, so in previous system, we have module that was dealing with all this stuff. But now we have this application which wraps around the extensions, and authentication is nothing more than just an extension. We have our authentication extension, which deals with Shoutem authentication. If you want to use our backend for authenticating users and saving their context. Facebook, Google, and Twitter. And if you want to make an extension which uses some form of the authentication, our Shoutem authentication extension provides you APIs that you can use. Like, for instance, you can use decorators in front of the screens, which will trigger different login screen, to show up before it's continued to the screen that you originally written. So you can require a user to be authenticated to come to your screen, or you can invoke it dynamically through events such as on press, on button, and so on. We also allowed admin application owners to add authentication wherever they feel like it's the right time to add this authentication, because admin itself designs the structure of the app, and he can decide where the authentication can be put in his application. And how we are using Redux. There is one global state of the application, and basically every extension can access this state and request the mobile core application to give the user context to it, so it can see if user is authenticated, if it's not, and to define the path from then.
Okay, that's interesting for sure. I think a lot of people would like to hear that and kind of know, because that seems like something that a lot of people take into consideration, I guess, when they're wanting to build an app, and just knowing that information would be great.
Yeah, we know that a lot of web agencies and a lot of our clients already have built their own authentication service. And we have also tutorial on how to make your own authentication extension. So basically, you can use our authentication extension, but if you want something more, something that we don't support, you can build it on your own with using pure React Native.
I know I said the last question was a long time ago, but okay, I have one more question, I guess. I guess about the pricing structure. So, like, how do you guys make money, I guess?
At the moment we have like pricing with the different plans, depending on how many applications you have. But the future plans, when we release this version of the product that supports these extensions in React Native, would be based on a usage. So if you are consuming that much of storage on our backend, you will pay a certain amount of money. If you are using, push notifications, analytics, and so on. So based on a usage.
Okay, cool. Well, that's great. I appreciate you going over all that. Is there anything else you guys kind of want to go over before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I want to add on that question you asked me 2 questions ago about who are our typical customers.
Yeah.
I would add on, beside agencies and enterprises, that also there are web developers, because our focus, one of our focus, is that we make native mobile applications as simple as possible for web developers. So that's why, by using the React Native, by introducing our own UI toolkit that support this kind of a theme, which is very similar to the CSS, and by resolving that burden with app publishing, we make mobile application development very, very easy and very intuitive to web developers.
So is the current platform Shoutem using React Native, or is that something that's going to be integrated soon? And what's the timeline for all that stuff?
Yeah, at the moment, the platform that you are seeing is not using React Native. It's hybrid applications. We are at the moment in the private beta, so we are testing this new version of the product. I believe that beginning of this fall we'll be launching a public beta, and we will start with the migration of our existing customers to the new platform. And by the end of the year, I think that we'll be out of the beta, and that platform will be available to everyone.
Okay, great. All right, well, great. I think we'll go ahead and get to the picks. I guess, Viktor, do you have any picks for the show?
I'm not sure if you cover that in your podcast. One thing that we are looking at the moment is the cloud storage services. For example, Parse was very popular with mobile developers, and as you know, they're shutting down. So we did a lot of research on Amazon EC Cloud, and also the Firebase, which was acquired by Google, and recently they announced a ton of new features. And we have issues with both Amazon and Firebase, and like, I would like to hear the podcast on that topic. Like, what are people are using about the as a backend, and what do they think that will be like the most popular cloud storage in future for mobile apps.
That's a good point. I would like to hear more about that too. I know that ever since the whole parse situation, I've heard a lot of things about Firebase, and then of course there's a few other services through Google and Amazon. But I think that would be a good conversation.
Okay, great.
Davor, do you have any picks?
I can mention one book that I recently read. It's Only the Paranoid Survive, from Andy Grove, I believe, one of the Intel's founders and CEO. Where he's talking about, and it's especially useful if you are working as, a business owner or product manager, that you always have to have your eyes wide open and listen for the Cassandras. And Cassandras are like the people that are somewhere in the front lines that you usually don't listen, and they bring like the bad news, like the warnings that you usually would ignore. And if you listen to those Cassandras, then nothing can surprise you. So that's kind of a pick up from my end.
Awesome. Okay, well, my pick is going to be the Open Camps conference that I was just talking about earlier. It's a group of I think 20 or so conferences that take place in New York at the United Nations. If you go to opencamps.org, you can kind of see all the different conferences. It looks like there's actually 25. So it's a really awesome conference. It was a very reasonable price. You get to go to New York, and if you're not from New York, you can go visit and do some sightseeing and not really have to break the budget on the conference price. So, you kind of give whatever you want. The quality of the content there was really good. A lot of nice presentations, good speakers, a very great place to actually do the conference, which was in the United Nations. So, very comfortable. I can't recommend it enough. So I think the series of conferences is over for this year, but if you go to opencamps.org and follow them on Twitter, you can kind of get up to date about the conferences for next year. There's a React camp, there's an Angular camp, Android, and artificial intelligence, just pretty much anything open source that you would be interested in. There's something there.
Nice, interesting.
Yes, it's awesome. So Thomas, do you have any picks?
Yeah, my pick would be maybe just like a field virtual reality. We got some devices in our office, I think week or two before, and we started to play with it. It's very awesome. I mean, I think that many people can see huge use cases in our lives that it would help, not just in games. And I would like to see how we can combine what we are doing now with our platform with the virtual reality. Because I think that it would be very powerful if we could have one device, smartphone, or however we'll call that device, that will be able to have the apps, but also this some other world where we can do almost anything.
Very cool, very cool. Before we finish and wrap up the show, can you kind of tell people the best place to learn more about Shoutem and where to get news about the company?
Yeah, you can visit regarding our latest project. We have a page on the GitHub, shoutem.github.io, and there where you can find out everything about React Native and how we are using React Native in Shoutem.
Yeah, you can see many concepts already introduced there, and we are working hard to improve them. But as this page is on GitHub, anyone can file any issues or pull requests if they think that something can or should be improved. We are very happy to receive them and look forward to have more developers interact with our platform.
Well, thank you guys for joining us and taking time out of your day to be on our podcast. We really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this wraps up episode 34 of React Native Radio. We'll see everyone next week.